Have you ever had a moment where something terrible happens and you just know it didn't have to be that way? You look around and ask yourself, why did this person have to die right now? There was no reason for it. That is exactly how people felt when Princess Diana died. For many years, the true story of what happened that sad night in Paris was kept secret. But now, a new piece of information is making everyone rethink everything. The head of the police has finally spoken up and made a shocking confession. He said that what happened that night was not just a simple accident. The last moments of Diana's life were not what the public was told. Behind the crash was a series of choices, some made because people were scared, and others made by people with power. Now, every single decision made that night is being looked at closely. What took place inside the Alma Tunnel was never supposed to happen. Now, the real story is just starting to come out. The big court hearing that everyone around the world watched is what we are talking about. The Alma Tunnel in Paris still makes people feel sad, even after all these years. That place brings back painful memories for many. One person who was mourning once said that it was there, under the dark streets of the city, that Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed lost their lives. The crash was so quick and sudden. The news spread like wildfire, and people could not believe it. Diana is gone, the headlines screamed. Crowds of people gathered everywhere. Cameras were flashing and people were crying in shock. The broken Mercedes car became a symbol of great sadness. Everyone was asking, how could something like this happen? Their voices were heard all over London, Paris, and many other places around the globe. This was not just a tragedy for the royal family. It felt very personal for so many people. The whole world was grieving together. One man said that millions of people watched Diana's funeral on their televisions. The streets were completely packed with people. Flowers were covering every wall and gate, and it showed how much they loved her. A woman whispered near Buckingham Palace that the day did not pass easily for anyone. People held their breath, and the pain stayed with them. It did not just go away with time. It still hurts for many, they admitted. Even years later, a full 10 years passed before a British inquest finally began. Many people had been waiting a long time for the truth. Families were saying they needed answers. The goal was to finally understand what really happened that night. It was supposed to last 6 months and cost a lot of money. But to most people, the money did not matter at all. They just begged for someone to tell them the truth. The coroner in charge wanted to be very open and honest, so he chose to show new footage from Diana's final night. No one had ever seen these clips before. Little by little, the last hours of Diana's life were shown to everyone. One detail really stood out to the people watching. They were holding hands, someone noted. Diana and Dodi were seen holding hands for almost 8 minutes. There were no words spoken, just a feeling between them. The coroner said that gesture said everything. There was also a short video of Diana smiling. That smile, caught on camera forever, became very hard to look at. She looked so happy, like there was nothing wrong in her world. One viewer mentioned that seeing her so happy made the tragedy even harder to accept. The jury had to look into 20 different points and examine them all. One member later explained that they had to go very deep into the details. They were told to carefully examine the role of the paparazzi and Henri Paul, the man who was driving the car. There were also letters from Prince William, Prince Harry, and Prince Philip. One of the letters read, "Please do not rush." The royal family wanted the inquest to dig for the whole truth, not just a quick answer. People did not want a fast conclusion. They had waited 10 years, one woman said, and they could wait a little more if it meant finally finding out what really happened. 2 years after the crash, a French judge named Hervé Stephan gave his findings. He said that Henri Paul was drunk. The report stated that he should not have been driving. But even after this, doubts still remained in many people's minds. In Britain, things moved much slower. The first coroner passed away before he could even start the inquest. The second coroner handed the case over to Lord Stevens, who was Britain's top police officer. Lord Stevens led a new investigation and finished with a report. His findings said there were no signs of a plan and no proof of a conspiracy. Still, that coroner stepped down not long after. Next came Lady Butler-Sloss. She was a smart woman, but one critic claimed that people did not trust her. Some said she did not have enough experience for such a big case. Others were afraid that she would keep the hearings hidden from the public. That idea caused a big storm of protests. Voices demanded that it must be public for everyone to see. Finally, the Court of Appeals said there must be a jury. After that ruling, Butler-Sloss quit, saying she could not carry on under those new rules, as the news reported. Then came Lord Justice Scott Baker, who was the fourth coroner to take on the case. In 2007, he finally opened the inquest. British law required it because the crash had happened in another country. He began by choosing a jury. Around 80 people were called to be potential jurors. One juror remembered that it was a very serious process. They were asked questions about any ties they might have to the royal family, the Al-Fayed family, or British intelligence. The court insisted that everything had to be completely fair. In the end, only 25 people were chosen to serve. The rest were let go because some had very strong personal views and others had connections to the people involved. As the inquest officially began, the weight in the room grew heavier and heavier. The coroner reminded them that this matters to the whole world, but he asked them to focus only on the facts. He told the jury to block out all the outside noise and stick to what they could prove. From the very first day, they faced very difficult questions. Footage from the Ritz Hotel became a key piece of evidence. The cameras showed Diana and Dodi walking through the halls. They did not seem worried at all. A worker recalled that they looked very peaceful. They rode the elevator together, then slipped out the back door. Nothing in their faces showed any sign of fear. Henri Paul's condition became a big point of debate. The French report said his blood alcohol was way over the legal limit, but the footage showed something strange. He walked without any trouble. He bent down to tie his shoes without stumbling. Viewers said that he looked fine, which did not match the test results. Doubts started to grow in people's minds. Maybe the tests were wrong, some wondered. The coroner reminded everyone to be very careful and to check if anything might have been changed. He said they must be absolutely sure about everything. The jury was also asked to think about Diana's fears. Had she felt unsafe before the crash? Did she suspect something bad was going to happen? Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, cried out that the crash was no accident. He said it was planned. That statement shocked a lot of people, but his words made many others push even harder for real answers. Each part of the case was looked at slowly and carefully. The coroner warned that nothing could be skipped or rushed. The inquest was not just about collecting facts. It was also about trust. It was about fear. And above all, it was about the deep grief that people still felt. Diana's loss was not just about royalty. It felt personal to so many. Someone said that she was like family to them. This inquest was more than just a courtroom event. It was a journey through memories, tears, and the search for truth. It asked some very hard questions. Could someone have stopped this from happening? Some people still wonder about that. It looked into every shadow and every detail. The lives lost in that tunnel mattered to millions of people, and they still do. The inquest became a way to honor them and to try to make sense of a senseless tragedy. A man standing outside the courthouse just said that they wanted to know the truth. And that truth, even now, continues to matter so much. Let's go back a bit. The night before the crash, back in 1995, Princess Diana shared something very serious with her lawyer, Lord Miscon. She told him that she did not feel safe. She asked for better protection for her car. She wanted more security around her. These fears were not just passing thoughts that she had. She added that something just did not feel right. But Miscon did not believe her fully at first. He could not understand why she would feel that way. He later admitted that it was a strange moment and that she was scared, but he did not know what to do about it. Still, Miss Khan reached out to Commander Jeffson because he wanted a second opinion. To his surprise, Jeffson said that he believed her, at least partly. That one sentence stayed in Miss Khan's mind. It showed that Diana was not just imagining things or being dramatic. She looked steady and in control of her emotions. She did not seem lost or confused at all. One aide recalled that she was very focused and clear-headed. Even though people whispered about her mental health, Diana never broke down in public. When the media called her unstable, she just smiled and moved forward. At a charity lunch, she joked about the gossip, saying, "Let them talk." People around her laughed. They did not see someone falling apart. They saw someone who was holding on tightly. One staff member said that she was trying her best every single day. Diana's team knew the truth of her situation. They saw her pain from a broken marriage. They saw her fight to stay strong under all the pressure. A close friend once stated that she did not give up, no matter what. By July 1997, Diana had officially walked away from royal life. She felt free at last. Mohammed Al-Fayed invited her to the south of France. She went there with her sons for a vacation. One observer noted that it felt like a new beginning for her. During that trip, she grew very close to Dodi Al-Fayed. What started as a friendship slowly turned into something more romantic. Diana looked truly happy again. A tourist remembered that she smiled like she had not smiled in years. Later, she went back alone to join Dodi and his family on their yacht, the Jonicle. Cameras showed them laughing and enjoying themselves in the sun. But there were also moments when she asked to be left alone. One crew member said that she just wanted some space sometimes. On Saturday, August 30th, Diana, Dodi, and bodyguard Trevor Rees-Jones stepped off the yacht. They flew from Albia Airport to Paris. Photographers were already waiting for them at the airport. Someone said that they knew she was coming. Among them was a man named Fabrice Chassery. That day, all the key people were finally in one place for the first time. Diana, Dodi, Trevor, and Henri Paul were all together in Paris. Henri Paul was the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel. He became a very central figure in what followed. He was not just a hotel staff member. He had links to French intelligence, which raised questions for reporters. Some people wondered if British or foreign intelligence was involved in a plan. But Paul's close friends said that he was not a spy. He did share some hotel information with French secret services every now and then, but nothing more than that. A former agent said that he helped them sometimes. British MI6 files were checked, and no signs of a plan were found. But even with that, the questions did not stop. Paul spent much of that day close to Diana and Dodi. He even took them to the Villa Windsor, which the Al-Fayeds owned. Diana's visit there was not random. She knew it would make people in the royal family feel uncomfortable. Later, Diana and Dodi returned to the Ritz Hotel. That evening was all captured on camera. They entered the Grand Imperial Suite together. Not long after, Dodi left to buy a ring. The jeweler said that he wanted something special. He showed Diana a brochure. Then he told a hotel manager to go and pick up the ring. It was from a collection called Dis-moi oui, which means say yes to me. The ring was locked in the hotel safe for safekeeping. People began to believe that an engagement was coming up, but no one truly knew for sure. As the night went on, they planned to visit another place. But when they saw photographers waiting for them, they decided to turn back. The pressure from the media was growing and growing. Paul was called back to the hotel, even though his shift had already ended. When he walked in, the security footage showed him looking sharp and sure of himself. But something felt off. Paul had disappeared for almost 3 hours before returning to the hotel. No one could say where he had gone or what he had been doing. That gap in time raised new doubts, the coroner said. Investigators tried to piece together where he was, but they struggled to find the answer. At around 10:00 p.m., Dodi canceled their dinner reservation at a high-end restaurant because too many paparazzi had gathered there. He said it was just too risky, so they decided to stay and eat at the Ritz instead. Cameras showed Diana and Dodi growing more tense as the media presence never let up. Paul, who was now back on duty, walked around like everything was fine and normal. He even stopped by the bar for a moment. No one knew exactly why he had been asked to return to work that night, but he moved with a sense of purpose. It was the final stretch of a long, heavy day, and in just a few minutes, everything would change forever. The plan to escape the paparazzi was put into action. At around 10:20 p.m., Dodi Al-Fayed had a private word with the Ritz night manager, Tyre Rose. He told her in a low, serious voice that he wanted to go to his apartment that night. Only a few people were told about this change in plan, and Henri Paul was one of them. Just a few minutes later, Tyre Rose was seen passing the message to Paul and another hotel worker. Henri Paul listened very carefully to the instructions. Then he pointed toward the chauffeur who had earlier brought Diana and Dodi to the hotel. He walked over to another driver and began speaking to him. That small conversation became part of a chain of events that would lead to the tragedy. Everyone started moving differently, with a sense of urgency. One staff member said that Henri Paul was not like other hotel workers. He had been there for many years and knew everyone. He was trusted and respected. A coworker shared that Paul had access to areas that others did not have. The younger bodyguards, Trevor Rees-Jones and Kes Wingfield, looked to him for direction. Paul was giving the orders that night, and everyone was following them. By 10:30 that night, Paul stepped out of the hotel. He walked across the Place Vendôme to where a group of photographers stood. He spoke with them for a while, one said later. He stayed for about 7 minutes, then returned to the Ritz at about 11:15. He entered the bar, found one of his unfinished drinks, and drank what was left. The bartender recalled that he did not look worried or stressed. At around 10 minutes past 11, Paul went outside again. He spoke to the driver of Dodi's Range Rover. Then he turned to talk with some of the paparazzi again. A photographer said he looked like he had a plan. After a few words, he went back inside. He bent down to tie his shoelaces. Footage showed him spending 44 seconds doing it. People walked past him, unaware of what the night would bring. No one knew this would be the last time they would see him alive, a hotel worker later shared. After fixing his laces, Paul headed upstairs toward the Imperial Suite. A new plan was forming in his mind. Diana and Dodi could not leave through the front door because there were too many cameras waiting. Someone suggested that they needed to fool the photographers, so the idea of using decoy cars was born. Paul said that it might just work. Kes Wingfield was told to leave through the front door. His job was to draw the attention of the press and make them follow him. Meanwhile, Diana, Dodi, and Trevor Rees-Jones would go out the back entrance, and Henri Paul would drive them himself. At 23 minutes past 11, Paul came down again and stepped outside. He had a short talk with some of the paparazzi, but one of them remembered that he said very little. 3 cars were lined up and ready, Dodi's Range Rover and 2 similar black Mercedes cars. The goal was to confuse the photographers and make them chase the wrong one. Paul added that they should let them chase the wrong cars. The hotel was now completely surrounded by dozens of people waiting, hoping for a glimpse of Diana. As midnight came closer, the final decision was made. Diana and Dodi would leave through the rear entrance with Paul behind the wheel. Just after midnight, the pieces began to move. One of the decoy drivers entered the hotel lobby. Paul walked past him and headed to speak with the real drivers. Upstairs, Diana and Dodi left the suite. Kes Wingfield walked with them. A staff member recalled that Diana did not seem nervous at all. She even laughed at something Dodi said. She seemed ready to leave and in good spirits. Henri Paul had a job to do that night. As the head of security, it was up to him to make sure Diana and Dodi left safely. Someone noted that he stood near the entrance and made a small hand gesture. Just then, Diana smiled and raised her hand in a playful way. She saluted Henry. One staff member remembered that moment fondly. Even with all the pressure around her, she showed kindness and tried to keep things light and fun. Another added that she was always trying to make people feel comfortable. That simple wave showed the real Diana, who was warm and open, even in the middle of so much stress. To avoid being seen by the photographers, they took the service elevator down to the tradesman's exit at the back. Bodyguards checked the path to make sure it was clear. Downstairs, Paul gathered the drivers and went over the plan one last time, instructing them to follow the lead and not stop for anything. At the back of the Ritz, Diana, Dodi, Trevor, and Paul met in the narrow corridor near the service door. They stood close together and Paul asked if they were ready. They all nodded. There was no turning back now. Their story was about to end in the most tragic way, and the world, still watching, would never forget what happened next. The crash happened so fast. By 19 minutes past 12, a black Mercedes pulled up at the back of the Ritz. Trevor got in the front seat. Diana and Dodi slipped into the back seat. Paul got behind the wheel. None of them had any idea that history was about to change forever. The car pulled away from the hotel. Cameras tried to catch a photo of them, but the decoy plan had worked, at least for the first few moments. Some photographers ran after the wrong cars that were driving away. But it did not take long before they realized what had really happened. Someone shouted that they had gone out the back. Although Diana and Dodi already had a head start, a few paparazzi noticed the real car and chased after them. Someone yelled that they were getting away. Motorbikes revved their engines, and cars followed closely behind. The chase had begun. Henri Paul pressed the gas pedal hard. The Mercedes took off into the dark streets of Paris. The night air was filled with the noise of engines and the flashing of cameras. It was meant to be a short drive. Normally, the fastest way to Dodi's apartment was through the Champs-Élysées, but that night the roads near the Place de la Concorde were blocked. Paul had to make a new decision. He turned the car and followed the road along the River Seine. The car raced forward very fast. A witness said that he did not slow down at all. Instead of turning right to exit, Paul drove straight into the Alma Tunnel. The car was moving at over 60 miles per hour. One expert later said that the tunnel was not built for that kind of speed. Then came the crash. The Mercedes hit the wall, bounced off, and smashed into the 13th pillar. A rescue worker said that it was sudden and brutal. Henri Paul and Dodi lost their lives instantly. Diana was alive but badly hurt. Trevor Rees-Jones, though bleeding and broken, was still conscious. A doctor said that he survived, but just barely. However, some people believed that another car was involved in the crash. People started talking about a white Fiat Uno. Pieces of its tail light were found inside the tunnel, and there was also white paint on the Mercedes. One investigator explained that these signs showed that contact had taken place before the crash. Someone said later that the Fiat Uno was completely innocent at that point, but something happened right before the crash. A damaged white Fiat Uno was linked to a man named James Anderson. He was a photographer with connections to royal stories, but he said that he was not in Paris that night. A French officer said that his story had holes in it. Still, nothing was ever proven, and the full truth remained out of reach. Inside the tunnel, things got worse very fast. Photographers arrived at the scene quickly. Some of them took pictures instead of helping. A driver said that they did not help at all, they just snapped photos. The public later reacted with a lot of anger. But in France, there was no law that stopped them from taking those photos. 7 photographers were arrested, and their cameras were taken away. Many of the images they took were never seen by the public. A reporter said that they knew they had something big. Meanwhile, a doctor named Frederic Melis was driving by and saw the crash. He ran over to the wreck and tried to help Diana until paramedics arrived. They worked on her inside the wreck for many minutes before finally putting her in an ambulance. A medic explained that they tried to keep her stable. The hospital, Pitié-Salpêtrière, was less than 3 miles away, but the ambulance did not rush straight there. Instead, the team followed their medical rules and worked on her as they went. She was getting worse by the minute. A doctor later shared that it took an hour and 43 minutes to get Diana to the hospital. Many would later say that this delay may have cost her life. At the hospital, more important figures started to arrive. The French Minister of Justice and the British ambassador came. A nurse recalled that they all stood in silence, just waiting. Then the world heard the terrible news. Princess Diana had passed away. A doctor confirmed that she did not make it. People around the world were completely heartbroken. Tears filled the streets. One woman said it felt like the world had stopped. In Paris, London, and many other cities, crowds gathered. Flowers, candles, and handwritten notes appeared everywhere on the sidewalks. After the shock, questions followed. Investigations began, and experts looked at every piece of the crash. Many people asked why they opened the tunnel so soon after the accident. Others wanted to know more about the white Fiat Uno and whether it was part of what caused the crash. The official investigation said there was no proof of a planned act or crime, but doubt stayed alive in the hearts of many. People also questioned the medical response. A British reporter asked if Diana could have lived if they had moved faster. The doctors said they did their best, but still, many believed that time was lost. The inquest lasted for years. Every witness, every detail, every photo was examined. A French judge said that they tried to find the truth, but no final answer gave full peace to anyone. There were just too many missing pieces and too many secrets. What is known is this: that night in Paris, Diana lost her life. A woman who once stood as a symbol of love, strength, and hope was gone. One man said through tears that she was the people's princess. Her death changed the world, and her final moments will never be forgotten. The crash in the Alma Tunnel had already changed everything, but the days that followed brought even more pain and confusion. Nothing felt normal anymore, one witness said. From the start, the events moved slowly and with great care. On the morning after Diana's death, French traffic officers kept the westbound side of the tunnel closed. They did not want to rush it, someone shared. They waited until everything had been cleaned and checked. It was not until 10:00 a.m. that the road opened to traffic again. People were already gathering, said a police officer on the scene. Some just stood and stared, while others left flowers and notes. Everyone wanted answers. But getting those answers would take a very long time and cause even more questions to be asked. Later, the coroner handling the inquest decided that the jury needed to visit the Alma Tunnel. He believed that seeing the actual site would help them understand what happened that night. But even this simple plan ran into problems. During the visit, one of the police officers lost control of his motorbike and fell off. At the same time, a coach carrying the jury members had issues with its wheels. One of the drivers said that the whole trip started falling apart. What was supposed to help the jury just added more stress to an already tense week. It was just one problem after another, a court worker said. Then came something even more troubling. The coroner told the jury about a serious inconsistency involving Lord Stevens, the man who had led the first investigation into the crash, which was called Operation Paget. Back then, Lord Stevens had asked all the big questions. Now, during the inquest, he was the one being questioned. The issue came down to something he had said to Henri Paul's parents. During a meeting in Paris in November 2006, Lord Stevens reportedly told them that their son would not be blamed for driving under the influence. But when the official report was released weeks later, it said the complete opposite. The report claimed that Henri Paul had been over 3 times the legal alcohol limit. This contradiction forced the jury to ask some very difficult questions. Why did Lord Stevens say one thing and then allow another version to appear in the report? The coroner listed 3 possible reasons. 1. Lord Stevens did not know what would be in the final report, which would mean he was not fully aware. 2. He may have lied to Henri Paul's parents to protect their feelings. Someone whispered that if that was true, then how could they trust him? Or 3. Something might have changed between the meeting and the final draft. Another juror said that something just did not add up. Whatever the truth was, the jury had to dig into it. The coroner admitted it was an emotional matter. He believed that Lord Stevens would eventually explain his reasons. Maybe he just wanted to ease their pain, one person said. But instead of making things better, his words only added confusion and doubt. That was not the only issue on people's minds. There was another rumor, one that refused to go away. People began asking whether Diana had been pregnant at the time of the crash. Some photos taken weeks before the crash made people talk even more. The coroner told the jury that Diana had been taking contraceptive pills, which made a pregnancy unlikely. Still, a doctor explained that nothing could be confirmed with full certainty. Despite that, Lord Stevens stood firm in his belief. He said that blood tests showed no signs of pregnancy. He said the tests were clear. He also said that Diana's close friends had shared that she was not planning a new family or even an engagement. A friend told the court that she was moving forward, not rushing into anything. But even with these facts, doubt remained. Dodi Al-Fayed's father strongly believed that Diana was expecting a child. Someone close to him said that he never let that go. His beliefs clashed with the official findings, and that made the jury's job even harder. As the months passed, the jury had to deal with more claims and denials. Some came from people testifying in court, and others came from those outside the courtroom. A journalist noted that everyone had something to say. Feelings were running very high. People had strong opinions. It was clear that Diana's death had left behind more than just sadness. It had also left behind a lot of mystery. One member of the public asked, "Who is telling the truth?" To many people, Diana was more than just a royal. She had touched lives, helped people, and shown care where others did not. Many people felt that the inquest had taken the focus away from who Diana truly was. Another person said that she deserves peace. But others believed that the inquest was very much needed. A man in the crowd said that they must know what really happened. They believed that without full answers, the doubt would never go away. For them, the long and costly process gave them a chance to find the truth, and that they felt was worth everything. As the inquest went on, more stories popped up in the media. Some were shocking and some were strange. One juror said that every day there was something new in the news, but many of these stories did not help. They only made the truth harder to see. Still, the purpose of the inquest stayed the same. It was set up to find the real reason behind the crash. Every single fact was to be checked. The inquest was not just about one night in Paris. It was about everything that led up to it and everything that followed. In the end, they hoped to bring light into the darkest tunnel of all.